evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. At the time of recording, we are about a week and a day away from Assassin's Creed Day, which I totally forgot existed. And I thought, as a good way to celebrate Assassin's Creed Day, why don't we actually take a look back at the music of Assassin's Creed? Now, normally I usually play with my own music. I'm very much of a heavy metal person, so that's usually the backing track. But again, a great friend of mine, Gustav, messaged me about the music of Assassin's Creed, and I've been binging it just so he can join me today.
I'm glad to be here, back on the show. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and you're back because you made me binge, if I've got my files up now, yes, 12 years. Wait, yeah, it's about 12 years worth of Assassin's Creed music because you inspired me to check it out.
Oh, yeah. Well, Assassin's Creed music has always been great, and some of the soundtracks are timeless. So, yeah.
And I will agree, but there's nothing greater than clearing out bandit camps in Origins 2, Metallica's For Whom the Bells Toll, or sailing the Jackdaw with a bit of Nickelback. That's, that was always my vibe, but I'm glad to have checked this music because a lot of it is cool, but some of it I'm not really impressed with.
Yeah, definitely. I will agree. Some of them are better than others, and yeah, some of them are more authentic and feel more real than others.
I think the biggest problem I've had, I don't know if you agree, is Jess get the name right because I don't want to butcher it. Yeah, Jess McKeed, who did the Ezio family, made this really iconic music for Assassin's Creed 2, and I love the Ezio family. But then checking back at all the other games, and then you suddenly see, well,
it's been overused. Is that the word you're looking for?
Yeah, it's in Odyssey, Origins.
It's been in every, I think, theme song since AC2, except for AC3 and AC4. Other than that, like, just that melody, that main melody has been used in every AC theme.
I love the tune, but when you hear the Odyssey version, which is more like wind instruments and a bit more style of Odyssey, it takes away that breathtaking vibe you got when you listen to it in Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say, like you, I love the tune, I love the main iconic melody, but it's a bit overplayed. It's a bit. It can become overrated. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. It's just been used too much in a way. Like, it's time for a new iconic AC melody.
And to be honest, I think this is where Valhalla steps up to the plate because. I could be wrong because I have heard rumblings that in the Vinland saga, which I haven't reached yet, the Ezio theme tune's meant to be there, but so far a lot of the Valhalla soundtrack is unique and inspiring for the game itself.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know much of the Valhalla soundtrack actually, because I haven't really played the game and haven't really sat down to listen to the soundtrack, so I wouldn't know too much about that one, actually. But I can imagine what it sounds like. I'll say it like that.
To be honest, I loaded up the game and I turned off my chilling game Spotify spot list because I was getting ready to do some Viking raids, some Iron Maiden and stuff like that, but I thought, for this show, I'll sit down, I'll listen to the songs, and holy hell, they're very up there. Like, they do get you wanting to raid without putting something heavier on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I'll say it's a fun thing you say because I'm not the kind of guy who really listens to other music while I'm playing games. Mainly if I'm playing like online games, GTA or something, and just doing some races or such, I can put on some like something on the side, but otherwise, I'm not really that type of guy. But I can see what you're going for, kind of background noise to fit the vibe and such. I can see where you're getting at.
I've always felt, and I think I'm a bit slow in the uptake, but Valhalla does it a lot better than Odyssey. And I think it's the music in the games are really great, but sometimes they try and have to balance between the tone of the world and the music. So if you're on your horseback, you get certain music. If you're in combat, and sometimes the actual ambience of the world is louder than the music.
Yeah. I mean, that's what
And
I think makes each soundtrack so great is that, like, how it captures, like, how it's inspired by the music of the time period, and, how it captures, like, that, as you said, vibe of the world. Like, I think that's what makes each soundtrack unique, and it's definitely something to, like, pay attention to in terms of, I'd say, critiquing each soundtrack.
and I would agree, and I think it's kind of a hard one because a lot of the times when I've tried to listen to the Odyssey one, for example, I kind of feel that in the game when you play it compared to the soundtrack, the ambience and the world and the actual sound effects of combat take over the soundtrack. So really, you don't hear much of the soundtrack. You just hear more of the blades clashing, the combat noises.
That I can imagine that sucks. But yeah, I mean that's another thing, as you mentioned. There's different soundtracks for, if you're riding on horse or you're in combat, like, or just strolling around. Like, the intensity of it changes all the time.
To be honest, I think I was more shocked with the intensity of it in Valhalla. Valhalla, I'm going to refer to a lot more because it's the first game I actually just sat down and just turned my background music off and tried to get into the vibe of the game. And the more you've inspired me to check them out, I realize it works so well. It's so.
What would you say your favorite soundtrack of, like, the different AC soundtracks is?
That's a hard one because. I don't know. I'm loving a lot of the Valhalla soundtrack. Yeah. That seems to me.
I would probably say AC2 and Black Flag are my favorites, and there's a number of reasons for that. If you want to go into that a little,
I would.
What I love about Black Flag is, like, I guess it's mix of genres and different cultural sounds. You have everything from a bit of, like, Latin music, because that game has a lot of different locations and cultures. You have the Spanish and Cuba, and a lot of it is also, like, traditional Irish, Celtic inspired music. Obviously, because there's a lot of British colonies and those instruments that you hear in that kind of music, like fiddle and guitar. That is what a lot of, like, classic pirate music consists of. So that was obviously a good way to blend that. And then obviously Edward is also from Wales, so he kind of has a little bit of that with him. And then you have a character like Anne Bonny who's Irish too. So that's what I love about it. And Brian Tyler, the composer, do you know his name?
I've heard his name, yeah.
Yeah, he's super brilliant composer. He did an excellent job, and he's just a great composer, especially at capturing vibes. And he also, I guess, has a thing for kind of going into that Spanish-y sound. He also did some of the soundtracks for the Fast and Furious films. If you've ever seen those, where there's also where there's also some beautiful classic guitar pieces and such. And also because the Fast films alone have a lot of, like, Spanish music in them. So that's what I loved about the Black Flag soundtrack is the overall melodies and him really Brian Tyler capturing the vibe of the world with the music. That is what I loved about that soundtrack. Some of my favorite tracks would probably be, there's one called A Pirate's Life. Beautiful and intense, like heavy strings, like cellos and bass. Really intense. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful soundtrack. And then the main theme, of course. It's funny you say that, because I think I also saw some people talked about that. Like, if you should replace the Ezio's Family melody with anything, make it like the Black Flag main theme melody. Would you agree?
No. Sadly. Judging by from all the studying I've done for the different things, I really don't think Assassin's Creed should use any themes from previous games. I think having their own instrumental, their own soundtrack, I know could be a lot more time consuming and a lot more money invested. But seeing as talking to the fans, a lot of people get invested either in one soundtrack or one game. And then to have a game that's probably got two, maybe one or two songs that are repeated from previous games, but a different melody or a different instrumental, still takes away from the magic because it's like, well, I know this one, I know the tune, I know the pitch, I know how it's going to go. It just sounds different because we're now using this instrument instead of this. It just loses a bit of magic in my eyes.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean. Um, but another thing I mentioned before, if you want to talk about that real quick, was the AC2 soundtrack.
The AC2 sound, I love the AC2.
What I love about it is how dark it is. Like, what that did perfectly was capture that dark and ominous vibe that AC2 really has. Like that mysterious, dark, sinister vibe. I mean, that soundtrack did that perfectly with everything from, choir pieces, large choir ensembles to strings to like, and considering, as I said, how does it implement the music of the time period? What I love about it is how much it fusions with electronic music, yet still pulls it off really well. And like distorted guitar, for that matter. As you said, you're a metal guy yourself, and the AC2 soundtrack had a lot of metal elements to it. There were some pieces with distorted guitar and such. So I love what I overall love about it is like just how brilliantly it captured that dark, ominous vibe, as well as its fusion of different types of music, while all still, connecting to that dark, Renaissance-y vibe. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, and I think that's what made it so unique, because I did expect, from reading my historical texts on the Renaissance, I did expect a more lively, upbeat, because Renaissance was when Italy was going through its most cultivated change.
You do have a few tracks on the soundtrack that are kind of more upbeat, happy. Let me find the track list here real quick. There are a few pieces like the Florence Tarantella, which is like happy strings and acoustic guitar. And then there are, let me just find it here real quick, the track list. Here it was. And then there's also a few other like carnival themes, and the Flight Over Venice is kind of more happy sounding as well, and that's a beautiful, like, Ezio flying over Venice in Da Vinci's Flying Machine. Beautiful part. So, it did have those, more happy tunes.
I know, and then I do agree, and
yeah, and I guess real quick, what I love about it is how much, how many like influences it took from like Christianity, considering it's also the Renaissance. As I said, choir pieces. There are a lot of choir vocals and such, probably singing in Latin or whatever language it is, or just noises. But that's also, as I said, how it captured the time period really well. Like those themes of Christianity, choirs, angels, all that stuff. Not that I'm much of a Christian myself, but still, yeah.
But it's good to see a balance of new style instrumentals, trying to fuse it with history itself, because we can't go back and say, this is what they played, this is how they played it. So the ability for them to use modern instruments and modern techniques to try and create a vibe that you'd think you're living in that time period is unique in itself, because we're trying to give people a game that's immersive, and there's no point giving someone an immersive game in details and in world design if the way the game sounds isn't immersive in itself.
Yeah. Now that I'm just looking at the track list, I'd say the best example of that dark vibe is probably, you remember Leonardo's Inventions, right?
Yeah.
that is like brilliant, 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 brilliant. That plays in Monteriggioni, and because that just perfectly, as I said, captures that dark vibe. You have your, I think it's cello, and then you have your other like dark, heavy instruments, bass heavy instruments, with that piano and guitar, and you just don't really know what to make from it. But it's not something happy, I guess.
I would highly recommend, even if you're not going to play the game, you would check out the
Valhalla
Assassin's Creed
soundtrack.
Valhalla soundtrack.
Valhalla soundtrack. Let me. I guess I could. I guess. Yeah. It doesn't look like the tracks are too long either, so I'll check out a few of them.
Jesper Keed came back to do a lot of the stuff, and a lot of the songs I think are really well done. I was trying to find the track listing for one of the songs I really enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
I'll come back to it if I can find
and
it.
Jesper Kid, he's Danish like me, so there's a bit of pride in that too.
I think just the brilliantness of it is just the fine fact it melodies like dark, gruff, Nordic style vocals in some of them, but at the same time it just has its nice gentle instrumental vibes, which I kind of got swept away in.
Definitely.
The one that I kind of enjoy the most, I've kind of found it. I'm looking at my notes now, guys. So I'm juggling notes here. I can't pronounce the band's name, so I will struggle with it. But the track's called "The Words of the Raven." It's they speak Icelandic, so getting the translation up is kind of worth it. But you just hear that, and you're already lost and immersed in the game already. You don't want the translation because the vocals in the Icelandic language is just still amazing and awe-inspiring to listen to.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but we can talk all day about how good the soundtracks are now, but I still think there is a way for how the soundtracks can go in the future. Because at the moment, for me personally, and I could be wrong, and I did mention it when Valhalla first came out, I find all the soundtracks, even though they may have a dark and gritty vibe and some sound upbeat, I just find them all orchestral at times. I would like more, probably just because it's me, but some more upbeat metal style.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of Nordic metal bands out there that would have worked great.
Nordic, like Volbeat or what? They're Danish too, so.
I'm trying to get the words right. There's
Norwegian death metal or something. I just heard that's a thing. Not that I've listened to it.
I won't go Norwegian death metal because I
guess in terms of metal, I'm more of an electronic metal guy in reality, like kind of a la Linkin Park, Bring Me the Horizon, and such. More than just like, but sure, I enjoy just a good plain riff now and then too, and kind of headbang and scream to that. I enjoy that as much as the next guy.
See, I'm very mixed. I like my heavy scream. I like the vibe you get from Metallica. That's a perfect example. And Iron Maiden. I mean,
I've never been much of a guy of those. Actually, it's maybe I should get around to it.
But I think like For Whom the Bells Toll is a really good one because it's got the nice instrumental, but it's got the dark low bass from the guitar.
Probably the most, I guess, raw metal band I listen to. Just real instruments will probably be, if you heard of them, Avenged Sevenfold.
Yes, I know Avenged Sevenfold. They're awesome.
Yeah, I prefer a good deal of their music, but some of it can just get a little lengthy and maybe a little too repetitive, some of it. But they do definitely have their pearls. They're gems. But what I love about them is how good they are at tackling a ballad, like, just as much as they are, like, a heavy tune. Like, my favorite song from them would be probably their most country-esque song, believe it or not. It's called Dear God. That's my favorite tune from them.
If you heard that in the background...
Oh, it's all good.
I apologize, my kids' toys are attacking me.
Oh.
Well, this life as a parent. Life as a parent, people. It's all good.
Yeah.
So, as I was going to say, the band I was on about, I found the name now. It's a band called Amon Amarth. They're a Swedish metalcore death metal band, and the reason I brought them up a couple of times to some fans for Valhalla is they did a song called Twilight of the Thunder Gods. Well, of the Thunder God, not gods, because there's only one god, which is essentially Ragnarok. They did a whole song based off the legend of Ragnarok, and the vibe and the proper deep melodies was a style I could have saw working really, really well in Valhalla. I'm going to have to put it on my Twitter as well, see, so everyone can listen to it, but it is such a great song.
Right. I haven't heard of it, but I'm sure it's great. Maybe I'll get around to checking it out sometime. So yeah. But I guess overall, it's just like, I guess kind of I've talked a little bit about it, but what about you? Like, what do you feel like makes a great soundtrack? Is it kind of along the lines of what I said? Like, how does it capture the time period and such, or what would you say?
For me, it's probably more of a personal taste than anything.
Yeah.
But I kind of want a soundtrack that's going to get me hooked. It's the same with any song. I'm very fluid with my songs, but the key thing I look for in a song is a hook. I need something that's going to make me want to listen to it. And even if they have a soundtrack that doesn't quite fit the time period, but has a great hook to it, even if it's orchestral, choir related, if it does have that hook, then I'm going to invest more time into it and more energy into finding more about it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I guess a little bit taste-wise for me too. As I said, Black Flag. I think another reason I love that so much is because, like, traditional Irish music, I love that in general. Like I really love that. Traditional Celtic music. And AC2, I guess, the overall vibe of that, of course, but maybe also because I'm quite a fan of electronic stuff. It's maybe the reason why it's those two soundtracks specifically I return to so much. Maybe just because they're some of the best AC games as well.
I can understand that. But I think soundtrack is just like anything, really. You never truly can find what everyone's going to like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So have you personally thought of ever working on music for Assassin's Creed?
Me personally, I'm actually, I guess I can say this now, I'm actually kind of working on an Assassin's Creed inspired project, which I hope to have out early next year. It's an instrumental project, but it's kind of like music, 5 pieces inspired by 5 of the games, and then kind of, taking music from that time period and mixing it with some of my favorite elements from the soundtracks. So I'm kind of working on it a little bit, getting some ideas, and then I'll hope to have, like, early next year everything recorded and mixed and all that, and I can get it out sometime before the spring, hopefully.
Well, I will be retweeting that all over my Twitter because
I will be very excited to share it. I guess I can, if it's okay, share a detail or two. It's 5 pieces. One is, I guess this is kind of indirect, but Unity, like, a lot of that had a lot of medieval vibes to it, even though it wasn't directly set in medieval times. But, you had the Helix Rift, you had the prologue, and, medieval France is very popular. So it's kind of like a medieval-inspired piece that is Unity-focused. And then it's an AC2 piece, which is going to be a mix of, what is it, tarantella, that traditional festive Italian, and then also with that kind of dark and ominous electronic things that we talked about, as well as some choir pieces. And then also I have in the works that's kind of AC3 inspired, kind of like a Native American-esque piece, because Connor's a Native American that also has some Western elements to it and such. And then obviously a Black Flag inspired piece with some like Latin percussion and classic guitars and some traditional Irish and stuff. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. I hope I'll get a lot of like personal satisfaction working on it, and I'll be excited to share it whenever it's ready. So yeah,
I will be excited to listen to that.
yeah.
To be honest,
And
sounds
then
kind of cool.
finally, I forgot to mention this. Like the final track is going to be a Syndicate inspired one, but I chose there just to kind of go for like '90s British rock, if you know what I mean. Like because I guess the height of Victorian London was kind of like strings and stuff, but you also see a lot of that implemented in like '90s British rock, like Oasis and stuff like that, which I'm a big fan of as well. So I kind of chose just to go that Britpop route towards a Syndicate inspired track.
Whenever I play Syndicate, I kind of think of old school 80s punk style music, especially from like The Clash,
Just
London Calling.
British rock music in general, I guess.
If we talk about British rock music, you'd have to always mention Queen somewhere.
Well, of course. Well, I'm talking more about maybe the little more hair on chest kind of stuff because Queen had not that Queen isn't great or anything. I'm just talking more the kind of raw, rebellious lyrics in a way. Maybe those bands, as you said, like that old punk stuff, Oasis, that kind of stuff.
Like Sabbath, I could go on.
Yeah. So yeah, just this project is going to be a lot of fun to work on. I got some different ideas and working on it like on and off so yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to share whenever it's ready. I can actually, if you want to, I have my guitar next to me. I can play a little piece if you want to hear it.
I heard guitar and I was being like, yes, I would hear.
It's for that Unity medieval-ish piece. I'll just play a fraction of it here. That's just a fraction, but the melody kind of has that kind of, I guess, dark medieval vibe to it. So yeah.
Are you ever thinking of maybe doing an Assassin's Creed version of Toss a Coin to the Witch?
I've heard that melody, even though I haven't watched the series. Maybe it's gonna have some similarities, but I'm thinking that additional track's gonna have like some harp, maybe flute, cellos, like all the stuff that made medieval music what it was. I guess fun story about this track is like it was New Year's Day this year. I was just sitting with my guitar. I was kind of playing, and then suddenly I played this pattern. I was like, I heard an entire melody in my head, and then bam, I had that piece. So, and that's how the best pieces, you come up with the best pieces sometimes. It's just randomly. Like you play one note, and then you have like, you can just hear the whole thing in your head.
I'm not very much of a musical person, but I've had similar inspirational moments.
Yeah.
But more podcasts.
I doubt someone sits down, I'm going to write a cool piece now. A beautiful piece. Now, those just come, really. So yeah.
Some of my best podcast projects have come up while I've been in the shower. Just staring out the window thinking, if this didn't happen, I can talk about that next week.
That's brilliant. All right. All right, but that's brilliant. All right, but I think we covered a lot of stuff, good stuff, wouldn't you say? Like, I think we covered a lot of good stuff.
I do agree, and I think it's all we got time for tonight.
Yeah.
But I am kind of excited to see where Assassin's Creed will go again. We've got a lot of the music. However, if I have to, I will petition that we have some more heavy rock inspired.
I guess on the we could talk about that. What kind of game would that suit, or time period for that matter? Like if you were gonna go towards a more rock sound, maybe the Industrial Revolution, which we've already had a snippet of, is probably what I'd say. Like 1800s, like the latter half of the 1800s.
Judging from experience, personal experience, Assassin's Creed 3 could have done well because There is a
How?
Iron Maiden song called "Run to the Hills," which is inspired by the overtaking of the people that invaded America and took over from the natives.
Yeah,
So
I
that, yeah,
guess maybe, but I I haven't listened to the AC3 soundtrack all that much, even though there are some tracks I really like from it and melodies and such. But I think that the theme of AC3 was more as like orchestral, like horns and stuff, kind of that epic colonial vibe, as well as some Native American tendencies, of course, because Connor's a native. I think that was more. I don't necessarily see how like electric guitar would fit it necessarily.
but this is where the misconception probably comes in with my idea. When it comes to rock music, it is people do tend to think like heavy electric guitars, but a lot of rock music does have more heavy ballad styles from just bass,
Absolutely,
guitars
and
turn low, and
acoustic
it's
guitars
that
or something.
yeah, it's that sort of way because "Run to the Hills" from Iron Maiden. If you probably turn the bass down a bit, you could be a good sort of backing vibe. Because the whole idea about that song, I've had it played against the trailer for the Assassin's Creed 3 reveal, and it fit because Connor is essentially running up a hill to the song "Run for the Hills." You were right, Industrial London. I think that would suit punk rock very, very well. I could think of the Clash when I play Syndicate, like I said. Um, Amarath, which I listen to a lot these days when I'm doing side stuff, would have worked for Valhalla because it's like Swedish metal. It's got their sort of vibe, but I'm not too sure where else it would work. Maybe it's just me dreaming.
It's all good. All right.
I'm probably gonna look into this more, guys.
Hmm,
I'll have a list.
Sure. But is there anything else we should cover, or is that all?
I think that's everything, to be
All right.
honest.
Thanks for having me. Then it's always a blast.
It is, and I want to thank you all for listening. Like I said, we are recording this a week before Assassin's Creed Day, which is the 21st of December. But when this comes out on the 21st of December, it will not be the only podcast of that week. As a Christmas present to you all, you're getting this episode on the 21st and another episode, which I'm not going to reveal too much details yet, on Boxing Day. As it's Christmas, you can have 2 episodes because I'm very generous. Or technically, you might be having 3 because there is an episode coming out on the 19th.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's one hell of a way to kick off the end of the year.
Yeah, I think.
And meanwhile, I'm just doing one episode of my show for the ones who came before, and I'm so lazy that I'm getting people to guest host that for me, so I don't have to do anything. Yeah.
So my listeners are aware of what it's like behind the scenes of Let's Talk. I will be honest, right now, I am inundated with shows. I have 7 projects on the go that need to be complete by February next year.
Wow. I wish you best of luck, man.
Yeah, this is project number 1. I'll tell you this all now. This is project number 1.
Wow.
Second project's coming on the 19th, the third on the 26th.
We'll be excited for it all. Shouldn't we just say it like that?
Yes. Yeah. These are all going to love them, I hope.
Yeah. All right.
So, thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a great Assassin's Creed Day, and I'll catch you all on Boxing Day. Merry Christmas.